So the unfortunate result happened where Aljamain Sterling won the belt over Petr Yan due to a disqualification, a very rare occurrence in the cage where a fighter is actually awarded the championship off of a disqualification. Well, when you look at the fight, it was pretty competitive. Aljamain Sterling had a very fast early start, fast pace, a lot of volume, especially with the kicks, and his volume generally was freezing up Petr Yan. He wasn't throwing anything back, he was just focus on defense. It did exploit a bit of what you could do to Petr Yan if you just keep a high output on him and don't let him breathe, because Petr Yan is a guy who downloads data. He's usually pretty slow in the first round, so he can calculate what the opponent is trying to do. He's a cerebral and methodical fighter. But when you overload his data with a crazy pace, evident what we saw tonight, you do freeze him up a bit. But Aljamain just didn't have the cardio, didn't have the gas tank to do that for 5 rounds. He started to gas out in the 3rd round. And whenever there was a lapse of time where Aljamain slowed down his pace or wasn't throwing anything at Petr Yan, Yan was catching him with those laser right hands, as Sterling generally kept his left hand really low, getting a bunch of the trips as Aljamain constantly looked for spins, constantly giving up his back too. Petr Yan, it seemed like he tried to go for the leg, that's why he kept giving up his back, right? If Petr Yan would try to take him to the ground by going for a body lock or anything like that, Sterling was always in the position to dive under for the leg. So it looked like Petr Yan was going to win the fight. His momentum was building, his morale was building, Aljamain was very tired, and Petr Yan was a little bit tired but had way more in the gas tank. And then the illegal knee happened. So when we look at this carefully here, Aljamain shot him with a naked takedown. There's no setup, it was kind of slow, he's very tired, and Yan simply shifts his leg away and catches Sterling in a headlock as Sterling took a knee so he doesn't get kneed in the head, right? He purposely went on a knee so he's counted as a grounded opponent. Grounded opponents cannot be kneed to the head. So he did this on purpose so he didn't take any damage, right? Then Petr Yan did not know what to do from here. So he was listening to his corner. Now the thing you have to know is Petr Yan speaks Russian. He understands English a bit, but not perfectly. He's not fluent in English at all. His corner speaks English to him. He trained at American Top Team for this fight, which is an American gym. So you hear his corner literally telling him, just punch. And you also hear someone else say a bunch of other things. I don't know if it's a different language, but it's really hard to hear what else is spoken, but you can listen to it here.
Just punch.
And after his corner tells him that, you hear Petr Yan yell out, almost for like a confirmation for something, and then he goes and knees Aljamain Sterling. I think he didn't understand what they were telling him. I think there was a bit of a language barrier here, because there's no reason he would throw a knee. He was listening to his corner, he responded to them, and it seemed like he thought they told him to hit him, to knee him, to kick him, something in that manner. I don't think he heard them tell him to punch him. So this was more complicated than it originally looked. Yan did not need to do this in order to win the fight. I think there was a bit of a language barrier here, given you can actually hear what his corner tells him. There's a bit of more gibberish going on. The corner is yelling and stuff like that. You hear Aljamain Sterling's corner, Petr Yan's corner, but the same voice you hear from Petr Yan's corner is telling him to punch. And I can see a lot of people are saying that Aljamain Sterling was faking, wasn't concussed, he was okay, he was playing it up. It could have been possible, but when you look at the interview and you look at the way he was responding and the fact that he didn't even know he won the belt, when Bruce Buffer said that he's the champion, he was kind of like surprised, like, wait, what? I'm the champion? And then he threw the belt on the ground and he was very upset with the whole situation. He could have been absolutely concussed. I mean, that knee was hard. That was not just a soft knee. That was a full flush knee to a grounded opponent who did not think he would get kneed, right? Aljamain Sterling went down on one knee, so he thought he would not get kneed. Now, I agree with everybody. I hear everybody saying, that's a dumb rule. I think so too. Put your knee on the mat so you do not get hit by knees, I think is a pretty dumb rule, to be honest. But it is part of the game and you have to go by what the rules are. And Sterling is now the champion. Whether it be he was going to lose the fight, doesn't matter. Fights have to go by certain rules, and these are the rules that we have. As unfortunate as it is, rematch is going to have to happen, but I think there's going to be a bit of time off, as if they do see that Sterling was concussed and he's not healthy to return very quickly, he's going to have to take some time off, and we'll probably see this fight again maybe in the fall. And that should be an interesting one where they're both going to make plenty of adjustments. Aljamain's definitely going to work on his cardio, because if Aljamain Sterling has the cardio to put that pace on for 5 rounds, he could absolutely beat Petr Yan. But what we seen tonight was Petr Yan may be the better fighter, and he can't freeze up in front of Aljamain Sterling's attacks like that if he does want to give up the first couple rounds. So unfortunate circumstances, unfortunate results. It was a pretty sloppy fight, but action-packed, a lot of things going on. It was very fun to watch. So what I think is, I don't think Aljamain Sterling was playing it up. I don't think he was acting. I don't think Petr Yan did it on purpose to commit some kind of foul or resort to this to try to win the fight. I think Petr Yan did not understand his corner. He didn't understand Aljamain Sterling was down. That's why these fighters have to know the rules. They have to know what's a grounded opponent, what strikes they can throw, all that sort of stuff. And I think the knee was so bad that Aljamain Sterling was definitely hurt by it. I am all in for him taking the disqualification win. I mean, going back in there and getting knocked out by Petr Yan would have been devastating. He would never have come back to this title shot. At least he gets paid, he gets the win bonus, and he gets a rematch with Petr Yan in another big fight for him that he can make a bunch of money on, and he could try to right this wrong. Again, he has many ways he can go on and win the rematch, just as Petr Yan can. So I honestly think the rematch is going to be an even better fight than this one. I think now that they understand each other, they understand their weaknesses and strengths that they can impose on each other. I mean, we've never seen Petr Yan freeze up against an opponent like that. And we'd never seen Aljamain Sterling have to fall under those kind of power shots and get his takedowns completely stuffed and grappling completely nullified. Besides when he got knocked out by Marlon Moraes, but it was a little bit different in his style. Marlon Moraes is more of a kicker. He's not much of a boxer. And Sterling got multiple takedowns thwarted by Petr Yan. I mean, Petr Yan's takedown defense is going to be like near 100% because of this fight. And just like we were saying before this fight, these two have never fought anything like each other before. Sterling got rocked, he got dropped, and Petr Yan was not as technically savvy as he expected to be in this fight. So I believe both fighters are going to be a bit down on their performances, which is going to make the fire even bigger coming into the rematch. And I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to thumbs up, drop a comment, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.